The wife is first. Chapter 25. Eating vinegar. Being jealous. Tomorrow, Ben Wang will be going to present the petition to Imperial Father. However, don't get your hopes up. Jing Shao looked at the color of the sky. The time to accompany his Wang Fei to eat their meal had come. Thus he put down the teacup and rose, preparing to leave. Wang Ye's big kindness and virtue, this daughter thanks you on behalf of me and all my clansmen in advance. Ge Ruoyi kneeled down on the floor with a putong sound and called out for Jing Shao. Jing Shao sighed, turned around and walked out. The Southeast king, in the end, was just the local tyrant of the Southeast. Their great ancestor gave that piece of feudal land in the Southeast to him as a vassal and gave him total authority and control. Even if the Ge family had an even bigger injustice done unto them, according to the important matters in the current situation, his imperial father would suppress this matter. But the things one had to do, one still had to do. The information that could be used against the Southeast king, although they couldn't use it for a short while yet, in the future they'll definitely be able to make use of it. Right now, he would report it to his imperial father, as it was also considered a meritorious service. These few days copying books. Mu Hanzhang would often forget the time, thus Jing Shao first headed to the study to find him. There was not a soul in sight in the study, just a half-finished copied book on the table, being blown by the wind creating hua-hua sounds. Jing Shao walked in to close up the book and put it away. Turning his head, seeing that below the table there are several balls of paper, picked up one to see. There weren't any words on it, just 3 big ink blots. He couldn't help but break into laughter. Surely, Junqing copying books for so long had also gotten vexed. Tomorrow, he had better copy them himself and let Mu Hanzhang go play for a day. Where is the Wang Fei? Even when Jing Shao arrived in the front of the dining table, he still didn't see a trace of his Wang Fei. Reporting to Wang Ye, Wang Fei said he didn't have an appetite, so returned to the bedroom first. Yun Chu answered honestly, not responding with the excuse Mu Hanzhang had told him to give. In Yun Chu, this youngster's heart, the gentle Wang Fei was clearly already very deeply hurt, still wanting him to make up a pretense to urge Wang Ye to eat first. In this world, who had this kind of logic? No appetite? Jing Shao frowned, turned and walked towards the bedroom. Junqing always came to eat on time, suddenly not having an appetite. Could it be that he was ill? The bedroom in the alternate residence comprised of a bedroom and a rear garden. The hot spring, built with white marble, occupied a majority of the entire courtyard. A winding path of flowing water extended underground, spilling out of the 1,000-layer lotus carved from green jade. This hot spring pool was Jing Shao's most favorite place in the whole villa. There was a special person in charge of switching out all the plants on the vacant land next to the pool every season to the flowers and plants in season. Nowadays, several short peach trees currently in bloom were planted. Mu Hanzhang was resting the top half of his body on the side of the pool, reaching out his hand catching the peach blossom petals slowly floating down. His smooth and snowy back was revealed above the surface of the water, the dense mist lingering on it, making it seem as if he were really out of a fantasy. The sparkling and translucent water droplets flowing along his outstretched fingertips, streaking across the red of the hollow of his palm, taking along with it a pink-colored flower petal falling into the pool together. Withered flowers falling into water, the falling flowers yearning for love. But the heartless brook rippled on. What could one hope to do? When Jing Shao entered, this was the kind of scene he saw. He immediately felt his mouth and tongue became dry. Quickly shedding his clothing, he threw himself in. With a putong sound, huge ripples struck against his face. Mu Hanchang subconsciously raised his hand to block himself from them. He still had not yet collected his thoughts before he was embraced tightly by the person who suddenly emerged from underwater. Ah! Mu Hanchang cried out in alarm until he clearly saw who it was, and then couldn't help but sigh. Wang Ye, why haven't you gone to eat dinner? That's what I should be asking you. Jing Shao didn't let go of the person in his arms. Because of the water, the skin under his hands was exceptionally smooth and tender. He couldn't help but covertly grope a few times. Is your body feeling uncomfortable? Mu Hanchang smoothed his lips softly, pushing away the Jing Shao, who was moving closer and closer. Chen is fine. Still saying that you're fine? Jing Shao reached out and gathered the person up again and placed a kiss on his tightly pursed lips. I know you aren't happy. Didn't Xiao Yuan's wife invite you to go to the gardens in the south of the city tomorrow? Tomorrow, you just focus on having fun, and I'll copy that book. Mu Hanchang raised his head and looked at the Jing Shao with a smiling expression in his eyes. Even if this gentle expression was real, it also wasn't likely that it was like this for him alone. Lowering his head, watching the surface of the water diffusing vapor everywhere, he didn't say anything. The peach blossom petals that fell into the water floated in the water along the ripples, making circles, then slowly sunk into the depths of the pool. Jing Shao scratched his head, not knowing what had happened to him. Junqing, if you ever have any difficulties, do not hesitate to tell me. Mu Hanchang smoothed his lips, then sucked in a deep breath. Today, that maiden... Is Wang Ye planning to bestow the title of concubine upon her, or... Saying it like this, that kind of aching feeling emerged again, and he couldn't help but slightly knit his brows. Jing Shao stared blankly for a long time, and only then did he react. His family's Wang Fei was... eating vinegar? With one movement, he grabbed the still broken-hearted person, fiercely kissing onto those lightly colored lips. Mu Hanchang didn't resist much at the beginning, but when a wet and slippery thing reached into his mouth, he couldn't help but reach out his hands to push at him. But against his expectations, he was hugged even tighter, and that hand behind him had begun to slowly caress his waist and thigh area lightly, kneading and pinching. After the lengthy kiss, Mu Hanchang was somewhat unable to breathe, and leaned against Jing Shao's shoulders, gasping for breath. Jing Shao sucked in a deep breath of air. He sat down in the water, hugging Mu Hanchang, lightly stroking the back of the person in his embrace, helping him even out his breathing. Ge Ruoyi, she... Feeling that the person in his arm's body stiffened, he couldn't help but hook up his lips slightly, biting his earlobe that had become pink from the warm steam. She is a lady from an aristocratic family of merchants in the southeast fiefdom. The southeast king took a fancy towards the eldest son of the first wife in the Ge family, wanting to snatch him and make him a beautiful, pampered pet. In the middle, something happened that I'm not clear about. Anyway, in the end, the southeast king murdered the entire Ge clan, and that man, who was also Ge Ruoyi's brother, couldn't bear the humiliation and also died. She really just came here to lodge a complaint of great injustice? Mu Hanchang lifted his head to look at him. Naturally, this woman is very useful. I can't let her land in the hands of the fourth prince. Jing Shao frowned. Tricking Ge Ruoyi with the so-called being old friends with the deceased was just an excuse to set up the field for future plans. Here, with Junqing, naturally, he was not able to make much sense. Not knowing how to explain properly, just planned to say not much. In any case, you don't have to think of these things. In the future, I won't be taking any more concubines, and more so, I won't be taking another secondary wife. Lowering his head to look at the person in his arms, the pair of beautiful and dark eyes, when hearing this sentence, suddenly widened. You still haven't have an heir. How could you say these kind of words? Jing Shao smiled and looked at him. I already married a male wife. Having or not having an heir wasn't important in the first place. Moreover, Ever since I saw you, all the other people have become unpleasing to the eye. Xiao, you... Mu Hanzheng looked at him in astonishment. A prince who unexpectedly didn't want heirs? Wasn't he making clear his true feelings to him? The painful bitterness in his heart was immediately replaced by sweet thoughts. He slowly put his chin onto Jingshao's shoulder. I also feel the same. I also like you. In the end, this sentence, he didn't have the bravery to say them out loud. But Jingshao understood his words the Wang Fei had not finished saying. Lowering his head, he deeply kissed the reddened lips. This time, Mu Hanzheng did not resist. Instead, he slightly opened his mouth, letting him in. Jingshao was naturally not going to turn his back on such a satisfactory meeting. Hooking the soft tongue in his mouth, he intertwined them, one hand caressing the neck of the person in his arms, the other slowly pinching and kneading down from his shoulder, until he finally slid onto his chest, pinching one small bean in the water, lightly pressing and rubbing at it. Mu Hanzheng was aroused until he began to tremble, almost biting down on Jingshao's tongue. Jingshao lightly laughed, seized one of his two legs. He had Mu Hanzheng face him, and himself straddled between Mu Hanzheng's two legs. When soaking in a hot tub, there is no need for a single thread of silk. Now, in this position, it caused the head of Junqing's slightly raising cock, and the lively and full of excitement member of Xiaoshao to stick to each other. Jingshao drew his bashful, blushing with shame, Wang Fei closer to him, enabling the two organs to become familiar and greet each other. Mu Hanzheng's moon was smothered, but with his dick, which had been bumped against, became completely spirited. Jingshao pulled a lustrous and slender hand that was moistened with water over, holding their hands together, wrapping them around the two at the same time, lowering his head to suck in a little bean that was already flushed from all the pinching and kneading, sucking while rolling and nipping it. With both his chest and down there being attended to at the same time, Mu Hanzheng couldn't help but tilt his head backwards. When Jingshao suddenly increased the speed of the movement of their hands, he was somewhat unable to endure and threw his head back. Sparkling water droplets were flung into the water, following along his wet hair, truly, indescribably captivating. Mist permeated the entire hot spring pool. For a moment, all that was left was the murmuring sound of flowing water and the occasional gasps and moans that overflowed. In the second month of spring, the peach blossom petals floated down carefreely with the wind, stirring up circles and circles of thin ripples, causing the pool of spring water to blush red.